So I'm going to start my lecture. So the first question is about what is editing. So editing for me it's like a game. It's you need to find out how to put all the pieces together, a bit like a puzzle. And editing should be very playful and free. You need to try to forget everything you plan about the film and to think that there's no taboo. It is mostly about finding the correct emotion. I insist that you need to feel very free when you're editing, and you will find lots of solutions to all your problems. Editing is firstly about storytelling and characters. If you succeed to find the story and if the characters are touching and real, then the hard part of the job is done. Then the audience might be moved by your film. The emotion is mostly coming from the story and from the characters. Of course, the style and everything is very important, but for me, the story and characters is it's where I spend the most of the editing time. Editing is also finding and using the best footage and avoid to use the bad ones. It seems easy like this, but actually, as a director, you're imagining your film for a long time and you were on the shooting. Sometimes you think you shot a scene really well, and maybe actually your footage is not that great. And sometimes you had a bad memory about a scene because many problems happen on the set, and you think you have a bad feeling about this scene, but actually maybe inside the footage there is some great things that you didn't know or you forget. And the goal of the editing is to maximize the best footage and minimize the weak ones. So as an editor, I spend a lot of time to communicate with the director about what I like and what I don't, and what I think is good, what I think is not. And even with you might think that with great directors or like I work with Jadanke or with Diawinan, and of course lots of their footage are great, but they have also weak footage in their rushes, and so you always have to manage a balance and try to keep the good one and remove the bad ones. The editing can also define the style of the film, and because it's the last step of the last, not really the last step, but almost the last one, the last writing of the film after the shooting, and the editing can define the style of the film. My way of doing is to listen to the footage to find the style. So sometimes when the director contacts me with the script, maybe I might have some idea about the style of the film, but I really try not to think too much, and I wait to get the footage and see if it's a subjective or more objective kind of storytelling. Is it a film with long shot or with a lot of coverage? Is it a slow or fast-paced film? I need to understand and respect the cinematography and the film language. I don't want to put my editing style on the film. I prefer that the footage tells me which style is suitable to put them together and to tell this story. So another question is about what is good and what is bad editing. So I think there's no rule for bad and good editing, and the more experience I have, the more free I feel about the editing process. Although there's often some maybe a good way and a bad way to edit one film, it might be very different way for each film, and it's very important to find the right way to edit your film, and it changes all the time. When you show your film to people, to friends, we usually like to ask if the rhythm is good. That's mostly the people, they think that editing is mostly about rhythm. Is it fast or is it slow? And actually, I think it's a wrong question to ask, or it's a wrong question to answer, because the feeling of the rhythm is directly connected with the story and the characters. Sometimes the audience might feel the film is too slow because they didn't get enough information to follow the story. And then after adding scenes or making a scene longer, actually you might feel that the rhythm is faster, although the total duration of the film is longer. So the rhythm is really a tricky question, and usually it's better to focus on asking questions to people about story, about characters, do they understand or not, than asking questions about rhythm. More and more, I like to have a contrast in the rhythm of the film. So sometimes it goes fast, sometimes it goes slow. Watching a film, it's like when you're doing jogging. I like to run, and then sometimes I run, and then after I'm tired, so I need to walk and rest a bit, and then I can run again, and then after I can walk again. And when you watch a film, it's a bit the same. You need to give some excitement to the audience with some very intense scenes, but sometimes you need to slow down and to let the audience to think about what happened and to receive the emotion of the film. So I really like to do that, to do sometimes fast, sometimes slow, a bit like a wave. There is a question about invisible or visible editing. So some films requires invisible editing. It means that the editing is not showing off. The editing is just serving the story and the character. And last year I watched Anthony Chen, Wet Seasons. Maybe you might have seen this film. And it's typically this kind of editing. And usually, actually, this kind of editors, the editing of this kind of films doesn't get editing awards. But this kind of editing, which is quite invisible, you don't feel that there was an editor. You don't feel that it feels smooth. The story feels smooth, and you engage with the characters. And most of the time, it makes the best film. And on the contrary, some films need a very strong editing style. And I'm not here to say which one is good or which one is not. And sometimes it's, of course, in between. But some films are suitable to have a very strong editing style, and it depends on the subject. So, for example, a very famous film for editing is Apocalypse Now, and the strong is the editing style is very strong because it's a subjective story, and there is a lot of kind of dreamy sequence and oniric things, and that's suitable for this topic about the Vietnam War. And later I'll talk about The Crossing, Go Chun Tien, directed by Bai Xue, that I edited. And it's one of the first films I choose to have a quite strong style, editing style. And because it's a very subjective story about a teenager, we seeing the world through her eyes, and I felt that the film should be kind of pop, a bit like pop music. So I added some freeze frame and put some pop music. And I show you some piece of this film a bit later. Good editing starts with acknowledging the strong part and the weak part of the footage. That's often hard to accept it, and that might be painful, but that's really the key point of the editing process. If you know what is good in your footage, what actor is giving a great performance, which actor is not so great, or on which take is great and on which take is not that great. If you can find out that, then the editing process becomes easier. You can often find a way to maximize the good footage and find a way to transform the bad footage in good one. I'll show you an example later on. To be able to do that, you need to change the angle you're looking at the footage and use it in a different way that was originally planned. For example, one scene might not work if you use it as a complete scene with a beginning and an end, and as it was planned in the script, but maybe you add some music, maybe you use only the nice shot and you put it in a montage, And then all this, the beautiful part of those images are making something that Max work very well, because you can keep only the good part or the bad part of the, and remove the bad part of the scene. Or maybe you can start a scene in the middle if the first part of the scene is not great, or you maybe cut out the second part of the scene. That's finding out what is great and what is not is really need a lot of communication between the director and the editor, and it's sometimes painful. Now I have something about complete and incomplete. So sometimes you have to think on the scene level. Sometimes you need to think the whole film level. You need to constantly change the perspective of watching your film. A film might work very well when it is complete from the beginning to an end. When you just watch the scene, you feel the scene is great. But then when you watch the whole film, and this film is at 40 minutes, and then maybe you find out that actually this scene that seems great, and when it's in the whole film, it's maybe not dynamic or not so interesting or too slow. And so a way to do is to make the scene less complete, maybe to remove some of the scene and finish on a high point and don't give the answer of the scene, or finish the scene on a question mark. And then it will merge inside the structure of the film and make it more dynamic, because you're going to remove information and you're going to ask the audience to fill the gaps between one scene and another. And the audience brain is active, and the audience will have to think about what's happening, and this, the intellectual process of the audience is make him wake up most of the time. If they're completely passive, if they can feel, they can understand everything from beginning to the end, then they might fall asleep. Of course, it's very important that the audience gets enough information so that they can follow the story. And it's always very hard to find the balance between giving too much information and being a bit repetitive, or a bit too more like you giving a class to the audience, or you don't give enough, but maybe you focus more on the style than the content. So, for example, Rossian films, they often emphasize on the style and the beauty of these shots more than on the story information. And that's a very hard balance to find. You shouldn't give up the style, and you shouldn't give up the information about characters and story neither, and you need to find the balance. So now I'm going to show you, I see that there is some question. How do you find where to cut instinctively? This question is, that's a bit of about experience, I think, because I edit now for almost than 10 years. And of course, there is some tricks, and you can see with experience, you can see where it's a good starting point when there is a movement starting. For example, when you open a door, or you just a movement like this, when there is a movement, it's a good cutting point. But there is a lot of different kind of lots of kind of way to find a cut. You maybe, if you're young directors, you have less experience, but you can find that by you just need to edit by yourself, and you will find out this. I'm going to talk a bit about the crossing, Guo Chuntian, and I'm going to show some a few. Actually, I'm going to show one. I'm going to show you first. I'm going to show you one scene that I received from the director. So it's the director rough cut, and this film, it's takes place between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and it's a girl who is living in Shenzhen and going to Hong Kong for school, and every day she go back to Shenzhen by the subway, and she passes the custom between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. And so a story is someone is going to give her iPhones, and she's going to, later on in the film, she's going to become to pass iPhone from Hong Kong to Shenzhen. And so this scene is the first time that a guy give her some iPhone. So I show you the director original cut. And so actually this idea of freeze frame, for me it's kind of homage to the opening of Checking Express that I just show you in the beginning of this class, because I remember that Wong Kar-wai uses slow motion and freeze frame, and so I feel that it's as this part of the story takes place in Hong Kong, it was making sense to give this little homage. I'm seeing more questions. One is about the fade in, fade out versus a sharp cut, or even entering a short black screen interval between two shots. So that personally, I like sharp more than fade in, fade out. But of course, sometimes some films are suitable for fade in, fade out. But I think usually, if you can make it work with sharp, then it means that your editing point is good, and that it's easy to make. It's often a bit too easy to make fade in and fade out, because you feel it's smooth, it's comfortable, but actually the story is not. So I recommend that you try to avoid using fade in, fade out most of the time. And if you're sure about yourself, of course you can do it, but it's better when you first edit to avoid it. And actually it's also important to avoid to have too many black frame. And I know that beginners editors, they like to put a lot of black or a lot of and it's because they usually have not enough confidence in their storytelling, and so they feel okay, I'm going to pause, to make a pause and things like this, but it's not most of the time you don't need it if you find the good ending point for one scene and the good beginning point for the second one. So I recommend that when you edit, you try to avoid that, and be sure that of course you can play with it sometimes when you think it's helping the story. Now I'm going to if you have other questions, you can keep asking. I'll watch the question and I will try to answer little by little. So now I'm going to talk about the difference between working as an editor with a young directors and with experienced director. So for me, experienced director, as they edit many films, they know editing. They already know the rules of the game. So it's usually faster to work with experienced director, because you don't need to teach them. They understand they understand usually faster. But the inconvenience is that if you do something they don't like, and then that might start to look down on you, and you might lose the trust of the director. So that's not that simple neither to work with experienced director. Sometimes during the process, you might, as a director, you might lose the trust of the editor, and sometimes it's the editor who might lose your trust. From both sides, it's important to try to understand the other one and to give some reason for him to trust you. So for example, if I did something that the director really doesn't like, and I shouldn't insist on this. I should try to understand why he doesn't like it. Why doesn't I like what he want to do? And what is the third option? What is another solution that satisfies both of us? So very often, actually, the relationship between a director and editor is a bit like a boyfriend and a girlfriend. Young directors, they need a bit more time to learn how to play the game. They usually are more conservative, because they've been thinking of their film for many years, and it's very hard for them to change the way to change their way of thinking of their film. Actually, most of films, there is always problem in the screenplay. For experienced director and for non-experienced directors, that's the same. And during the shooting, there is so many things happen. Some scenes are well shot, some are not, because of many kind of reasons. For example, you didn't get the location you want, or you didn't have enough money, or to get enough extra, or to get the good camera equipment or the good lighting. Some actors are very good, and some are very good when they were just a small role, and some are with the more important role are not that great. Or the actors are unequal in between scenes. For all these reasons, the footage are not what you imagine in the first place. And so you must always rethink the whole film during the editing, because you have different pieces than what was in your brain, and you need to put these pieces together in a new and fresh way. In my experience with young directors, it's often hard to get them to think differently and to adapt the film to the footage, because young directors often feel that they are losing the control of their film. So they often feel that when you're suggesting a new idea, or you're suggesting that one scene is not good, they often feel attacked, and they need to protect their castle from the enemies who try to enter inside it. They feel they need to resist. I'm not talking about all the young directors, but in my experience, it's something I found out many times. And I suggest that you try to avoid this attitude and try to be open to other ideas. Of course, many of the young directors are open to other ideas, but you of course need to be strong about what is the most important for you, and to always remember the reason why you're making this film. That no one will change that for you, no an editor or producer. But how to do it's you have always different ways, and this is where the creative part of the editing is important. Experienced directors usually are not scared of new ideas during the editing, because they're more confident about themselves, because they make many films, so they know the process, and they're not afraid to lose the control on their film, because they know what is the most important for them. Although directors might have felt uncomfortable when they work with me, because I'm often challenging them. At the end of the process, most of the times they found out that the film is actually very close to their original idea. But to be close to the main original idea, you need to accept to lose control and try other things, to find a new way to get the original idea. And so my role as editor is always to push the director out of his control, out of his comfortable zone, so that the director know what is good for his film and what is not. Sometimes also young directors, they work with young editors, and when the young editor suggests something and try different things, and the director say, oh no, it's bad, all this is very bad, and you start to lose the trust in your editor. But actually you might think that actually your editor is helping you a lot by showing you what you don't like, because if you know what is not good, what you don't like, you will find easily find out what you want. That I'm going to pass. Finally, about young directors, I also found out that they also often think that the audience will catch all their story, and because for them everything is obvious. Of course, the director, you know the story inside out, and from so long time, and you know every pixel of the frame of every shot, and you're watching all the details, and you think that if you say one line at one time, it's enough and the audience will catch it. But actually, as an audience, if you think about yourself watching films, you never 100% focus on the film when you watch a film. You always think of something else, and often you miss some important information and something that might be obvious for you as a director, but is not for a normal audience. Finally, no, that I finished. Although it might, yes, although that maybe it's not obvious in what I just said here, but I really like to work with young directors. And I actually this year I did 3 young directors film, I think. And so it's every time is a different experience. It's different every time. Every film is different. And I have to find a different way of working with people all the time, but it's always, up to now, it's always a good experience. I'm going to talk now about, I mean, the question was asked by HAF staff, and it's should the director handle the editing himself? So I think it's there is not necessarily one good strategy for editing a film. There is every film there is a different way of doing, and I don't want to tell you this is a good way, this is a wrong way. I insist on that because I don't want to give you the idea that I'm just telling you the only way to do. But the way I like to do recently is I'm going to tell you the process I like to use now, from the beginning of the shooting to the end of the editing. And I'm going to be also a bit technical on some parts. And so first I'm going to talk about on-set editing, because recently since 3-4 years, I try to do on-set editing as much as I can. And so it doesn't mean that I'm on the shoot and I'm editing on the shooting. Most of the time, actually, I'm in Taipei in this room, and I receive the footage from internet, and I can edit every day, and I can send back the files to the director, the rough cut of every scene every day. So like he shoot day 1, and I receive the day 1 footage the next morning. And I edit on day 2, I edit the scenes of day 1, and on end of day 2, 24 hours later, I can send back a scene to the director so that he can watch it or don't watch it if he doesn't want to. But I prefer to start from the shooting because I receive the footage little by little, and I have time to understand it. So technically, how do we do that in this COVID-19 time where I cannot go on the set? So I would ask the production company to hire DIT that stay in the hotel room on the shooting location. And this DIT would prepare many things for me. He will first prepare some proxy files. So you will prepare 2 kind of proxy files. One is ProRes LT, and one is H.264, and both are HD files. I don't think it's necessary to do 4K files. But what is very important is that the ProRes LT files and the H.264 files and as the original raw files have all the same names, put in different folders. And so with, for example, DaVinci Resolve, it's very easy to do that automatically. I recommend, I mean, most of the DITs, they use Resolve to do that, but I really recommend to do it. And then the DIT, when he exports the H.264 files, he can export it in a Dropbox. Dropbox is a software a bit like Baiduin that sync automatically the files that are in a folder. So like this, as soon as he start to encode the files in H.264, it starts to upload. So when there is a first shot with the first shot is already rendered, and then it starts uploading. And then my Dropbox is syncing automatically. So when I arrive in the morning, all the shots usually are already downloaded and automatically. So the DIT he can just export and go to sleep. He doesn't need to wait for all that. Then I would ask the DIT also to sync the footage and to rename the clips. So depending on the software you're using, there is different way of doing. But I always ask that the camera team and the sound department team they just sync the time code, so that the camera and the sound recorder have the same time code. So like this, you can sync automatically the footage. In Final Cut X that now I'm using for 1 year, and I really love it. There is a third-party app called Sync and Link X. Resolve and Premiere, they have their automatic sync option. Both work a bit differently, but it's mostly the same. And then the renaming and organization of the footage is very, very important, because how you organize your footage, you need to be able to find the footage easily, and so that's very important. So some things that need to be done on set is to ask the sound department that they name the files following the scene, shot, take. So like if we shoot the scene 3, if we shoot the scene 3 and the shot 3 and the take 1, the sound recordist need to call it like 001, 03, 03, for example, or scene 001, take shot 03 and take 03. And like this, if the sound recordist put this inside his sound files, then Final Cut X or Resolve or Premiere can collect this metadata and change automatically all the names of the files, all the clips in your editing software with following scene, shot, take. And so usually I would ask the DIT to also add, after the scene, shot, take of the clip name, to add, for example, keep or OK, if it's a keep take or if it's an OK take. Like this, I can immediately see what take is the one that the director like. I talk a bit about Final Cut X because I think it's a great tool. So I really like it a lot. And I think it's very also easy for director to use it, and it's very hard to make big mistakes. So that's why I recommend to, now I like to use this software. And one thing that is very good in Final Cut X is keywords. You can do lots of kind of keywords, and it will automatically organize the files in different kind of keywords. So for example, if what you always need to do in one day of footage, you need to put all the, for example, the footage from the scene 1 in one kind of folder, so that you can find easily all the footage from scene 1. But you also need to put all this footage in a folder of day 1, so that you have all the footage of day 1 in one folder. And with keywords, you can do like this automatically. So you select, for example, all the shots of the day 1, and you just do a keyword, and you say, it's day 01, 09, 23rd, if it's 23rd of September. And then you can also do keywords for OK take and for keep take. And it will automatically organize everything by scene and by take, and by scene and by day. And it's very important to have footage organized by day as well, because sometimes you try to find the footage, but you don't remember the scene number. So if you don't remember the scene number, you might remember what location was this scene, and then you might remember what other scenes you shot this day. And then if you remember that you shot another scene this day, you might find the shooting day of this scene, and then you might find out the shot you need. Then when the dailies are synced by the DIT, he sends me the project, and I can start editing. So during the shooting, I only edit every scene without cutting any. I don't cut out any lines, and I try to use all the shots that are all the shots. And I usually prefer to use the OK take, because it's a safe But sometimes when I don't like the OK take, I watch the previous take. If the OK take is the last one, maybe I watch the 2 or 3 last take. But during the on-set editing, it's not necessary to be very precise. You need just to find what works and to see if you can edit the scene without problem. If you don't miss very important shots or very important line of dialogue. And like this, I can actually edit the scene faster as well. And of course, going back to scenes and shots, it happens later on in the editing. So I would just put all my editing in one sequence, and every day I will add more scenes in this sequence. So at the end of the shooting, I have one sequence with all the footage without anything cut out, and mostly all the shots, and that is following the script logic. And that's very important to have this long version with everything, because later on you will find it will be very easy to find shots to find shots by this shots that you might have forgot. But during the half of the shooting, I also do something else. Is when I start to have enough material, I start to try some tests. So I would try to just cut like I feel, cut out what I don't like, and try to make something more creative that I can share with the director around half of the shooting. And sometimes it gives the director some ideas, and it's useful, I think, to do that. But the most important, the big advantage of doing like this is that the director during the shooting, he knows that there is someone that he trusts that is looking at the footage, and every day you, as a director, you can receive like maybe 5 or 10 minutes of editing footage, and so you always can find 5 or 10 minutes to watch dailies, and that's like this you can take the time to see that the day before was fine, or the day before maybe there was a problem. So if I found out that there is a problem, I will tell to the director. Sometimes he can reshoot, sometimes he cannot. And when he cannot reshoot, it's still good to communicate like this between director and editor, because maybe the director will try to avoid to make the same mistake, or maybe he will maybe we'll find a way to compensate the mistake that was originally done in another scene by adding one dialogue in another scene or thing like this. So I like to be part of the film during the shooting, but I try to be quite low-key and not to take much time to the director, just tell the important things to him. Recently, I was editing a film directed by Zhang Ji, which is called Ping and Shan de Moxi. And during the shooting, the producer is Diao Yinan, and during the shooting, around the end of the shooting, Diao Yinan went on the set, and so he watched my assembly, and then he found out that there was some problems. So he communicated with me about the problems and asking me if I can find solutions. And then I recut something, and then he see and he feel it's better. But then we still have some problems to fix. So Diao Yinan could talk to the director and tell him what he thinks he need absolutely to reshoot, and then or another scene that he need to shoot. And then that was very very useful, because when you still shooting, you can still arrange time to do other things. But when the shoot is finished, it's too late. So when I finish when the shoot is finished, I edit my first version. And then usually, as I'm editing during the shooting, usually I just need two or 3 weeks after the end of the shooting, and then I can show this version to the director, which is personal and with some strong decision. Sorry, I'm watching. There is many Q&A question as well. I will try to answer a bit later. So now I'm going to talk about the editing process. And so actually this year I stayed in Taipei, so I edit for 9 months now since the COVID-19, and I always stay here. And I could edit with many directors who are based in Beijing by distance. So most of time, the directors always need to edit his own version. So usually I would be with the director to edit the first version with him. But with the situation, it's not possible. So I did different kind of, I found different kind of solution depending on the films. So on one film, I hire an editor in Beijing who would work with the director so that the director cut his own version. Or, for example, for Buzhe Buxiu, directed by Wang Jing and produced by Jia Zhangke, this film, the director was, I met him in after the shooting, just before Chinese New Year in Beijing. We work 1 week, and then we go back, me to Taipei, and Jim, he went to Hainan. And then with the COVID-19, we were blocked in our 2 islands with 1,500 kilometers and distance. And so we use internet to work together. So I found some system with like a little box that receives a little box that receives the footage from the editing software, and it comes inside HDMI, and then it goes out with a USB, and it becomes like a webcam. So it's exactly what I did when I share with you the screen, the video today. And so using this way, I can edit and talk at the same time, almost like if we're in the same location. Of course, the quality is not always great, but I mean, it was enough to walk through it, to walk through it. And so then for Buzhe Buxiu, we edit 3 months like this. And then after that, he went back to Beijing, the director. And then in Beijing, he worked with the editor I usually work with to polish the editing by himself. And so he can have a good quality image, because he was quite frustrated with the pixel. And so he would work on one version with the editor, and then he sending back the project. And then me, I start working on it and changing things, and I send him back. And that works quite smoothly. And we actually spend a lot of time of talking with WeChat or Skype. And it's very important to communicate with your editor. And the editor need to communicate with you. I usually like to, when I cannot explain in Chinese what I want to say, and when the director is not good in English, I would write letters and I ask my assistant to translate it in Chinese to share all my ideas and point of view. And most of times the editing part is you don't solve the hardest problem in the editing room, but usually it's more about conversation or about when you are walking home or when I'm showering, and then you find ideas. And the communication is really a very, very important part of the editing process. Now the third part of the editing, when the director and the editor have a good version, they both like each other, the version, maybe the producer like it too, and we don't know what to do anymore. So then you need to show the film to people. And so you need to get some feedback. So I recommend when you have a version, you just take a week or two to show the film to people, and to show only one version to people, and not to change all the time, so that every people watch the same version. And then you can show to people that know the film really well, like for example your DOP or your screenwriter or your first AD. It's important to show the film to these people, because maybe they remember some things that they lack on the set and that you forget. So you can rely on these people. But you also need to show the film to people who doesn't know anything about the story, doesn't know were not on the shooting, and that can be friends, they can be normal people who doesn't know films. I mean, you can find different people. And I insist that you show the film to many people in the same version. So like this, you don't need to completely listen to everyone. But after showing to 8-10 people, you will find some maybe there is many people who say that there is a problem on one special scenes, or they don't understand one part of the story. And this is the more helpful advice you can get from people giving comments. You shouldn't expect to get solutions by showing the film to people. It's a bit like when you're going to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, you get some. The doctor need to first make a diagnosis. He need to know what is the sickness you have, and then when he find out the sickness, then he can find the cure. He can find the medicine for you. But you cannot do things you need to do the diagnosis first and then get to the solution. And the editing is the same. When the editor and the director are happy with the version, they need to see what's the problem in this version, what is the weak point and how to fix it. And if there is many people who say there is a problem on one part, then you shouldn't think that it's not a problem. It's a problem. If many people says it, it means something. And then I have something that I also find out from experience is when it's very small problems, it's easy to fix with one simple solution. But when it's big problems, sometimes directors think they can fix it with just one small modification. But it's not true. If it's a big problem, you can only fix it or with a big change or with many small corrections. So that's about the feedback process, which is, I think, very, very important. And it can be painful because sometimes people say they don't like your film. And you have to think why they don't like it. What is not working in the story. And you have to ask them which actors they like and which actors they don't like. If they don't like an actor, maybe it's not because the actor is bad. Maybe it's because this character has a problem. And maybe you need to exchange two scenes. And to swap two scenes, and then the introduction of the character become much better. So I'm going to try to answer some of your questions. Hi, Mathieu, because I'm working with, and so I would like to know about your work with director Midizid and other editor in NAO, and how you face to different language and culture of your work. So I speak Chinese, and yes, I speak Chinese. Actually, Midizid speak English well. Some directors don't speak English, so I speak Chinese with them. It's not a problem. About the culture, many people ask me this question. I think that well, I'm living here for 12 years now. 7 years in Beijing, 5 years here. So I know a bit of the culture here. But most of the film, it's always about relationship between people or society problem, and all this, it's quite similar in every country. I think there is always a universal part in every story. And the culture part is, if I don't understand, I always can communicate with the director so that he can explain me. Can you repeat the audio title you asked the sound guy should put in for things? Thanks. Yes, so the sound recorders, they usually use metadata, and you can there is a way in all the sound recorder to say this clip, it's a scene 1 and shot 1 and take 3. And after this recorder, as soon as you fill correctly this in the sound recording machine, then it will automatically name it with different kind of naming convention, but it's mostly the same. It's always like 005 for scene 5, and then 01 for shot 1, and I mean, and slash and 5 for take 5, for example. Have you used Premiere Pro? Why do you like Final Cut instead of Premiere Pro? Thanks. I use Premiere Pro for 5 years. I use Avid for 2 years. I used Final Pro 7 for maybe 6 years, a long time ago. And Premiere Pro, I got a bit frustrated with it because when the projects are getting bigger, the projects are always very hard to maintain and keep them working fast. And I wanted to try Final Cut Pro X, so I try it and I like it. So for now, I did with Final Cut Pro X, but I can change anytime. The editing software is just a tool. So you need to be, you can use any software, Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro X, DaVinci Resolve, Avid, if you want, but Avid is a bit hard to for beginners. All have their advantage and their weakness. No software is perfect. You can do things in some, you cannot do it in others, or you have to rethink the way of doing it. If you like to use Premiere Pro, you can use it. There's no problem. Do you follow director's storyboard, if any, to edit the first cut? All the film I did, there was never a storyboard, or they never give me a storyboard, so I don't follow it. But I follow for the first assembly, like I do doing the on-set editing. I usually follow the script logic. But then, as I said, my first version is personal, and I change things. I change the order. I change things because I like to do that. So I think I answered for most of the questions. I'm going to talk a bit about Ninahoo and the important, because I was just talking about the feedback. And so Ninahoo, you might have, I don't know if you watch it or not, but it's a story about a girl who want to become an actress, and she go to a casting, and then she got hired in the film, and during the whole film, she has some kind of PTSD, and she's kind of finding out what happens during this casting that make her a very uncomfortable feeling. And we decided to use her point of view, a subjective point of view, to tell the story. And so when she feels uncomfortable, we try to have some kind of dreamy sequence or flashback sequence or flash forward sequence. It depends how you see it, to reflect her trauma. And we reveal what really happened to her only at the end of the film. That's a quite special way of storytelling. I'm going to talk now about sound, color grading, VFX, and ADR. So during the editing, I like to work a lot on sound, on color, on ADR if we rewrite dialogues. Lots of stories problem can be solved through sound, VFX, color grading, editing. And I really recommend to try to do that during the editing, and not to say, oh, okay, we're going to do it like this for now, and we'll see in post-production when I'm going to the sound mix, or when I'm going to the sound color, the color grading, or when I'm going to do the VFX. The editing process is the last time where you can control everything in one room. So I recommend that you try to do as much as you can, because when the editing is locked, after everything is in separate department, and so you cannot control everything at the same time. So try to do as much as you can in the editing process. About color grading, every software, Premiere, Final Cut X, Resolve, you can do a lot of color grading very easily, and there is lots of free filters or things like this that can be useful if you want to do some, for example, if you want to do a flashback, or if you want to do a dream scene, or if you want to make like a VHS kind of image, or like a 16 millimeter kind of image. if you have some part of your film who need to have a different kind of image, I think you should try to do it during the editing, and then you will feel better if your editing is working well or not. And those tests in the editing, you have more time than later on. So I recommend you do that. Recently, I'm editing a film, and there is one scene nearby a lake on a boat with a girl and a boy on a boat, and the boy fall in the water. And this scene was not well shot. It was a daytime scene. And so to save the scene, I make something quite special. I make it day for night. So like I put it very dark and blue, and I make the sky dark, and I cut it shorter, and I intercut with another storyline who was happening at night as well. And so by using this way, the scene became very fine, and I saved a scene that was the director didn't like it neither, and but after we use this color grading solution, it saved the scene. About the sound, I always try to add atmosphere sounds. I try to clean the wireless microphone. For example, when there is some this kind of things, it's very annoying to hear that, and it's very easy to remove. So I really recommend that you do that during the editing. It will make you watch the film in a more comfortable way, and you don't have to compensate. You don't have to imagine what the film will look like. You can try to make the film look like what you want in the editing station, and then you show that it will improve your editing. The perception of rhythm is very connected with sound. So I remember once I was screening a version with the director in this room, and accidentally I put the level 5 dB too low. So the sound was a bit low, but not so low, just a bit lower than usual. And when we see it, it was evening, and especially at evening, the ear feel need more sound, need more volume. In the morning, you're more sensitive. In the evening, you're less sensitive because you're tired. So if the sound is lower than usual, then we feel this cut was boring and the film was bad. We had a very bad feeling about this version. And the day after, the morning, we came back, we just make 2 or 3 small change, which was very minor change, and we rewatch it with the correct sound level. And then the experience was completely different, and we feel that actually this version was really, really fine. Also VFX. About VFX, there is different things. There is some VFX that are green screen. So green screen, it's better if you can try to replace it to be able to see. And you have some VFX that are like a cleaning boom or cleaning wire or things like this that is not so disturbing when you're watching. But you can use VFX to help the story. And with Nan-Fan-Chaojian, White Goose Lake, we use a lot of VFX to do that. Actually, when I edit, I was not completely aware of all the VFX I did, but there was more than 200 shots with VFX, and all are very little detail in the image, and some are really important because it helps the story. And we also in the White Goose Lake we had some problems about the location, about how to understand the location and the space, and we had some problems about the cop who are wearing normal clothes. And so for Chinese audience, it was fine. They couldn't follow, they could understand who is cop and who is not. But for an audience, it was very hard to understand. And so we use many tricks with VFX, with ADR, rewriting dialogues, to make this more understandable. So how do you do when you finish the editing and you finish the shooting and you go to editing, and then you found out that there is one scene was not well shot, and maybe you cannot, you don't have the budget for reshoot. So, but maybe you need to reshoot. So when you don't know about that, I really recommend to try a lot of things during the editing and to edit as much longer as you can until you show that you have something you need to reshoot or not. Because during the editing, many things happen. So maybe at one point you find that one scene is completely unusable and need to be reshoot. But maybe later on this scene is not that necessary, or maybe this scene can be recut differently. So always edit first and then start to think about what you need to reshoot. Sometimes you can make miracle in the editing room, and I recommend to do it. I also want to emphasize about the restructure of the film. Many times you change the scene order and you cut out scenes, and that's most of the film I edit. It's always like this, and recently when I edit Puja Busio, before the shooting, I remember the director one thing told me, I worked so long on the script, and now I mean that because it's a very straightforward story. So I'm sure that we cannot change the scene order. We cannot cut out things. The editing is just going like the script. And I told him, oh, okay, we'll see after the shooting. And I laughed. And then he said, oh, yeah, we'll see. And then, of course, during the editing, we change a lot of the structure. And some scene was supposed to be the scene 2. Maybe it became, it come at 30 minutes. Or maybe some scene was supposed to be at 30 minutes, and we put it at 10 minutes of the film. And you need to be brave to try to change the scene order and to change the logic of your own script, because you can, for sure, you can find out some new story, from new way to solve your problems. Yes, I think it's a bit like I kind of finished what I wanted to say. And I'm going to talk just a bit more about Budge Busio, and I'm going to show you also the opening scene of it, which was not planned like in the script. And because we shoot the film before the COVID-19, and we start the editing during the COVID-19. And so the film is about hepatitis B in China in 2004, just after SARS. And so we found out that the story was really very, very connected with what is happening in the world now with COVID-19. And so by chance, the director, at the end of the film, he did some interview of some real people who did have COVID-19, did have hepatitis B. And I found out that we can emphasize the connection with the COVID-19 by putting some of this part in the opening of the film. I hope you enjoy the class, and I hope it will be helpful for your films. And thanks for your questions. That's it.